What do you do when you're Casey Neistat and Nike gives you money to make a commercial? Well, instead of making the commercial, you and a buddy take the money and you travel around the world until the money runs out.
So far the trip is off to a fairly irresponsible start.
Then you take that video and you turn it into something called Make It Count, which is one of Casey's most popular videos he's ever made. I've got some storytelling techniques that Casey used that you can use in your content. And in case you're wondering what a multi-billion-dollar company like Nike does when they find out that you've stolen their money, it ain't pretty.
Nike was like, look, we trust you, we don't even have to see it. So if you can have it done by, we missed it, we didn't even show it, like we didn't have it done.
Howdy, Jeff Bartsch here with Story Greenlight, where we're all about helping creators like you tell the stories you care about the most, so you can connect with your audience and make your mark in the world. That's what we're all about, so if you're new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss a single video. Now, talk about making a mark in the world. Casey Neistat is definitely doing that. And if you are watching this, there's a chance that you already know who Casey is, that he built the bulk of his millions of YouTube subscribers pretty much by cranking out over 300 episodes of his daily vlog. Now, what you might not know about Casey is that he is a legit feature filmmaker. He starred in his own television series on HBO.
Those were the original poster ideas for my HBO show from 2010.
And for a number of years, he paid the bills by directing TV commercials.
It was just like, I felt like a robot could do it. But it was a means to an end. It was a way of getting paid.
In fact, it was his frustration with commercial directing that led him to double-cross one of the most prestigious brands on the face of the planet.
We had come back from what was the most fun, expensive vacation we'd ever had. And we were just sitting on like 2 hard drives worth of footage, being like, what have we done?
Now, it's entirely possible that you've already contributed to the millions and millions of views on this video, but for the purposes of this video here, I'm going to assume that you've not seen Casey's Make It Count video. I'm going to talk about some of the storytelling tips from that video that you can use in your content, and then I'll include a link to the video itself at the end of this one. Tip number 1, combine multiple source elements. Now, the bulk of this video is vlog-style travel footage of Casey and his friend Max traveling around the world in 10 days. This travel footage is the backbone of the video. It's the main source element stream. And, that's what most people stick with, which is fine. I mean, if your main content element is stellar, awesome, go with that. Here's the challenge. Even for the biggest budget projects, a lot of the time the main source content is not stellar. What if it is lacking in certain ways that you couldn't even have known before you shoot? What if it has gaps? What if it's missing stuff that you need to communicate? A lot of the time, what people will do is they will add extra source elements. So the next element that most people use is they put in music and they say, here's my main source element, we're gonna drop music underneath it, and off we go. It's great. And a lot of the times, that's all that you need. But what Casey does here takes it to the next level. Now here's the thing, I would love to show you and play you pieces of the music, but YouTube, copyright, all the things. Let's just talk about it. So what Casey and Max do, which by the way, my understanding is Max did the bulk of the editing on this piece. Casey and Max use just one song and they use it all throughout the piece. And by doing that, they basically elevate it to the status of a music video. So it brings a hybrid element. It's a travel vlog with a music video all mixed together. That's an element of uniqueness right there. Next layer of content, Casey uses title cards with inspirational quotes on them peppered throughout the video. It functions as an extra stream of source content on top of the footage, on top of the music, and what it does is it creates an entirely new level of meaning. More about that in a minute. Yet another layer of source material is the use of the world map. Now, remember when we were talking about what happens if your main content is confusing or it has gaps in it? Now, it's one thing to get in front of a camera and say, hey, we're going to Cairo, hey, we're going to Johannesburg, hey, we're going to Bali. But it's another thing to actually show like a world map and to trace out the route. It's far more clear and far more easy to see how crazy this trip actually ended up being. So for your pieces, ask yourself, instead of doing what everyone else does, relying on the main source stream of content and putting music underneath it and that's it, you're kind of boxing yourself into a corner when you do that. What happens if you could add extra source element streams into that, you will give yourself more creativity to put your piece together, and you will create more meaning to your piece as you do it. Tip number 2, use visual elements to show progress. Now, throughout the video, Casey uses left to right motion to pull you through the journey as the viewer. And there are 2 main ways that he does this. First is the use of the map, which takes a detour all the way down into Africa, but generally stays going in an eastbound direction. And the more obvious way that he uses left to right motion is running. Now, it just so happens that Casey is addicted, like literally addicted to running.
I've got an addictive personality. Running is a unique part of my brain of who I am.
So showing him running literally around the world is 100% on brand with Casey, because that's just who he is. And also it's 100% on brand with Nike because, well, they're Nike and that's what they do. The map and the running pull the whole piece together. They create visual continuity and progression. Just like the map starts going right and then jogs down south and then keeps going right, enters from the left and continues right to the end, Casey does the same thing with his running. He starts center screen and then runs left to right the whole piece. Then, like the map, he enters screen left and arrives back to his home base. Now, the sequences where he's running across the screen while the shots are changing, there is a very specific reason why that works as well as it does. And it might seem kind of simple, as in like, well, hey, he's in the same part of the screen every time, which is 100% true, and that is very important to make that work. But it's only part of the reason why those sequences are so super smooth. I did a video on how to make your edits super, super smooth, and you can check it out up there for more explanation of why those Casey running sequences work as well as they do. And by the way, if you're wondering if that running left to right thing is an original idea, it's not. If you look at the song that Casey used in the video, it's Far From Home by Tiga. If you look at Tiga's music video, you will see Tiga exiting his house on a soundstage and dancing from left to right the entire song until he ends up on screen left, arriving back to his house. Coincidence? I doubt it. Creative ripoff? Absolutely not. Casey and Max modeled that idea and they turned it into something all their own. And that's the takeaway, actually. It's like, don't steal people's ideas, model people's ideas and transform them into something new. Tip number 3, use an engaging story structure. The title cards at the beginning of the video asks a question. It opens up a story loop that says, Nike wants Casey to make them a commercial. Casey wants to go on vacation. What's going to happen? The audience needs to have an answer to that question. And, spoiler alert, everyone gets what they want. Nike gets their commercial, Casey gets his vacation, and the viewer gets to go along for the ride. Everyone goes home happy. Now, to go further on this, let's back up a little bit and talk about what story structure actually is. And most people think it has to be this crazy, complex, and intimidating thing. It doesn't have to be. It can actually be really simple. It can be like this. A story is where a character wants something, overcomes conflict to get it, and experiences transformation as a result. That is a way to wrap your head around any story ever told. A story is where a character wants something, overcomes conflict to get it, and experiences transformation as a result. Here's the thing, the shorter the content, like a short form YouTube video, the less complex that structure needs to be, and it can actually get even condensed down even farther to just say, character goes from point A to point B. I once was this and now I'm that. Super simple. It can literally boil down to one word, progression or change. So the takeaway for the moment is you will always benefit from using a solid story structure. And the good news is the shorter your content, the less complex that structure needs to be. Now here's the flip side of that. The longer your piece is, the more complex the story structure needs to be in order to keep the audience's attention. Keeping the audience's attention for an hour or 2 hours or even longer, it's hard. That's why you have so much bad movies and TV out there, depending on who you talk to.
This is crazy hype.
Yeah.
One could argue that Casey's Make It Count video does not follow that classic character who wants something, overcomes conflict to get it, and is transformed as a result structure. It actually follows something more boiled down, more succinct. One could say it's a question and answer thing. Two competing character entities want something in opposition. What's going to happen? You get the answer. It's a question and answer structure. You could also say that the video has a progression story structure. Instead of ending up from point A to point B, you start at point A, you go all the way around the world with your buddy for 10 days, and you end up at point A again.
This is the gnarliest airplane food I've ever seen. Look at this wiener.
To go backwards and expand that story structure more, let's talk about what happened to Casey in real life. This will lead into the most powerful way that you can transform your content, so stick with me here.
The world of advertising is just an easy way to get paid for me, but I was really embarrassed about the work that I did there.
You have a young filmmaker who directs TV commercials.
You'd show up on set and you'd be like, I'm here, ready to express myself artistically and creatively.
But his creativity is stifled in the process.
And they're like, cool, here, do this. It's like I felt like a robot could do it.
Casey wanted to be able to do his own thing. That's the character, and that's what the character wants. Nike comes along and makes him an offer to let him do that, but then the character looks like he might throw away his opportunity. So there's the conflict, and everyone, including Nike and Casey and the audience, is left there sitting. It's like, okay, what is going to happen? And I'll tell you, the title cards at the beginning of the video are completely true.
There was a real moment, and by moment I mean like 3.5 months, where we had come back from what was the most fun, expensive vacation we'd ever had, and we were just sitting on like 2 hard drives worth of footage, being like, what have we done?
At first, Nike was patient.
We were supposed to premiere this video at South by Southwest, and the date kept approaching and approaching and approaching, and Nike was like, look, we trust you, we don't even have to see it. So if you can have it done by, we missed it, we didn't even show it, like we didn't have it done.
Then Nike got nervous.
I remember the Nike executive showing up, the guy who greenlit the whole thing, shows up in my office and just like standing over my shoulder, and Max is, we're like on the computers, and he's like, in the most polite way he could possibly be, like, what is this, what am I looking at?
And that's where things stood. Casey had to rack his brain to figure out how to take all this random vacation footage and turn it into something worthy of Nike. So after months of sweating bullets trying to figure this out, that's the obstacles and that's the conflict where he's working through it all, he turns a version into Nike and they're like,
are you wearing Nikes in this? And I was like, I didn't have any. And they're like, do you have the fuel band on? And I was like, no, that's a Casio.
Casey went back to rework some things, knowing that he was this close to destroying a relationship with one of the dream brands that he ever had the opportunity to work with. In the meantime, Nike sends some bright red shoes with these huge swooshes on them, and Casey shoots the beginning and the ending shots of the video as a complete afterthought, and he turns in the revision to Nike. And they love it.
Before I posted, I was like, guys, you mind like me telling the story that like you didn't say this was okay? And they're like, this is why we wanted to work with you, man. And I was like, well, that's why Nike is Nike. But more than that, it was a real sort of validation of what it means to follow sort of your instincts.
So that's the end of that real life story. Casey wants to escape the drudgery of the ad world to do his own thing. Nike offers him an opportunity to do that. He makes a choice that jeopardizes that opportunity. He blows past deadlines that makes things worse. He finally puts together a version that Nike loves, and he realizes the power of trusting his own intuition. The character has gone through obstacles and has achieved transformation in his heart and in his mind. And that's where the real power of storytelling comes in, when change happens internally. Because this video and the real life version of it are not about just taking a crazy trip around the world. It's about taking risks and learning to trust your own intuition. Which leads me to the last point. Tip number 4, add layers of the thing under the thing. Most people, when they create content, they only talk about what's on the surface, what I refer to as the thing. Here's the deal. In order to really suck people in and to get all the feels happening, you need to take what's happening on the surface and attach it to deeper levels of meaning. You need to attach the thing to what I refer to as the thing under the thing. And when you figure out how to add those deeper elements into your pieces, the emotional impact of your content jumps through the roof. I kid you not, and this applies literally to everyone, whether you're doing vlogging content or DIY how-to stuff, or even straight up business videos. It applies to everything. One of the ways Casey elevated the impact of this video was by the use of those quotes throughout. Because this video, it's not just about a crazy trip around the world. That's just the thing. The thing under the thing is what's represented. The core idea is underneath those quotes. It's daring, it's adventure, it's striving. And then what happens is those ideas get attached to Nike. And because you, the viewer, are watching them, those ideas get attached to you. Think about Nike. They are masters at doing this. Nike is an athletic apparel company. That's what they are. That's just the surface. That's just the thing. When you see a Nike commercial with someone running in Nike shoes, they're not selling the shoes, they're selling ideas. They're selling a mindset. That's the thing under the thing. They're telling you to just do it. They're telling you to stand up for what you believe. And they make some very strong choices that sometimes people either love or people hate. And I actually did a video talking about that. You can check it out up there. This idea of the thing under the thing is super, super powerful. In fact, Casey's buddy, Peter McKinnon, heard about this idea and said that it
actually blew my mind. Just like put it into like perfect clarity.
Now, I will say it does take a little bit to wrap your head around the idea of what this thing is and exactly how to apply it to your own content. So I've put together a short playlist of videos that you can check out right there. And I will see you in that next video. And in the meantime, remember, keep telling your stories because you matter. Your message matters, and the world needs to hear what you have to say.